Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here, albeit virtually, to present some of my work today. And this is work that forms part of my PhD research, but is really part of the work of a much larger team, a research team at the Adolescent Accelerators Hub at the Universities of Cape Town and Oxford. And so today I'll be presenting on minimizing risk, maximizing retention, a cascade analysis of vertical HIV transmission prevention among adolescent mothers and their children in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa. South Africa is often considered almost to be an epicenter of the HIV epidemic, having the largest national HIV epidemic globally, and with almost 8 million people currently living with HIV. As with many social, economic, and health challenges facing South Africans, the effects of this epidemic are unequally felt, with women, and particularly young women in this case, disproportionately affected. This inequality is starkly reflected in the fact that 1 in 3 pregnant women in the country are living with HIV. And this places not only their own health at risk, but also that of their children. While South Africa has made remarkable progress in reducing the vertical transmission rates, progress has slowed in recent years and still falls short of the pediatric HIV elimination goal of 2030 of under 50 per 100,000 live births. Decades after the induction of the country's antiretroviral program and continuous research and policy updates, what do we know at this point? Well, firstly, that while biomedical interventions are absolutely critical, alone they are not enough. Social and structural factors, things like social support, education, partner involvement, all play a significant role in how women access and remain in vertical transmission prevention services. We know that younger mothers are a particularly vulnerable group who consistently show higher rates of vertical transmission, and that these adolescent mothers are also more likely to delay testing and treatment initiation and be lost to follow-up longer term. And long-term retention is important as breastfeeding remains a major transmission risk period for vertical transmission. And so in a country with the world's largest free and universal HIV antiretroviral program, and with comprehensive vertical transmission prevention policies that are progressively and regularly updated, South Africa should be well on its way to eliminating vertical transmission. Yet, this goal, even before the devastating effects of the recent funding cuts, has remained perpetually within view but out of reach. So then the questions remain. In the vertical transmission prevention cascade of care, when, where, and importantly, why are adolescent mothers in South Africa still struggling to stay engaged in HIV vertical transmission prevention services? And who is most at risk of vertical transmission, since we know that adolescent mothers are not a single homogeneous group? And how can one begin to answer these questions? Well, we have a unique multi-source data set obtained from the Hey Baby longitudinal cohort study, which is the largest of its kind in the world, including 1,044 adolescent mother and child dyads from the Eastern Cape province in South Africa, a region with a particularly high HIV prevalence. Baseline data collection took place through face-to-face interviews between 2017 and 2019, and since there have been 2 more follow-up rounds, with the study concluding within this year. From these dyads, I combined their self-report data from the Hey Baby self-report questionnaire for 1,028 of these mothers and their firstborn children, with Road to Health booklets given to each mother at the birth of her child, which includes immunizations, checkup records, and other health data, and complemented that with National Health Laboratory Service HIV test results. And so having this combined data set of self-report plus medical records. And this rich data set allows us to go a step further than a standard national database and to try and better understand these mothers' lived experiences. For the analysis presented today, there were three main research aims. Firstly, to map out or to quantify the vertical transmission prevention cascade for adolescent mothers and their children. Secondly, to identify socio-demographic factors that are associated with successful completion or uptake of each step using multivariate logistic regression models. And then finally, to see how these factors interact at the most critical points of the cascade using marginal effects analysis. Starting with a snapshot of who these mothers in this cohort are, at baseline, the median age at pregnancy with first child for these mothers was around 16 years. 30% of the cohort were living with HIV at the time of the interview, and 35% were not enrolled in school or dropped out of school by the start of their pregnancy or because or due to their pregnancy. 71% lived in an urban area, and 22% lived in informal housing, and this includes experiencing homelessness. Moving on then to the cascade itself. Based on the relevant treatment and care policies at the time of the pregnancy, we created or distilled a 5-step cascade for mothers and a 3-step cascade for their children. The first 2 steps and the last steps, the dark blue steps, are those that applied to all pregnant women presenting to antenatal care. And the 2 lighter blocks in between are for the mothers specifically living with HIV who had tested positive. So the first step was attaining at least 1 antenatal care visit. And this was positively near universal at 89%. Then having a record of an HIV test or being diagnosed prior to pregnancy, this number dropped down to 78%. Then among the mothers living with HIV, 94% had ever initiated on antiretroviral treatment, yet only 43% were consistently virally controlled during the entire perinatal period, so up to 18 months postpartum. And then finally, of all the pregnant women presenting to care, 68% visited at least or presented for at least 1 postnatal care visit. And then for the children, 90% had a record of any HIV test up to 18 months. And then only 36.8, so 37%, had any follow-up HIV testing, so 2 or more test results, used as a proxy for being retained in care longer term. And then finally, 65% of the children were initiated on any form of antiretroviral prophylaxis or treatment. And then using all of our data sets together, we found that 13 children were diagnosed with HIV by 18 months, resulting in a 4.4% vertical transmission rate. Using independent logistic regression models for each cascade step, we investigated the association of 6 maternal socio-demographic factors with successful records of cascade step uptake. For the mothers, only 1 step showed significance, and this was step 5 for postnatal care. Here we found that living in an urban area, in informal housing, or living with a partner or alone, as opposed to with family, all resulted in reduced odds of attending postnatal care. We did the same for the children, and the 2 factors that emerged here were maternal age at pregnancy and the specific policy period, so whether it was pre or post the introduction of option B+. And here, younger maternal age and pre-option B+ policies resulted in reduced odds of children receiving any HIV testing and treatment by 18 months. And then finally, choosing postnatal care as a significant part of this cascade or package of care, we kind of zoomed in to see how the factors that we found significant interact with each other to create a better picture of how this works in real life. And we found that if you look at the top right corner, mothers who lived in formal housing with their families in rural areas had more than double the predicted probability of attending postnatal care than mothers in the bottom left corner who lived in informal housing alone or with a partner in an urban area. And this urban area is often an urban informal settlement. And so, in conclusion, we found that vertical transmission rates among the mothers, the adolescent mothers in the Hey Baby study were high, 2 to 3 times higher than the national average at the time. Some vulnerable points in the cascade came forward. For mothers, this included viral suppression during and after pregnancy and postnatal care attendance. And for children, this meant follow-up testing, which again is an indicator of long-term retention in care. We also saw a picture of mothers particularly at risk, those who are very young, those with housing instability, and who may face rejection or lack of support from their families. Upcoming analysis will dive deeper into the specific pathways, but it is clear that within an already vulnerable group, adolescent mothers, certain young women need additional attention and support to ensure the long-term health of themselves and their children. I'd like to thank our participants, all of our team members, those who supported the research, and all of our funders, as mentioned. Thank you very much for listening.